Hello, good day, Dumelang Sanbonani, and welcome to the continent of South Africa. Right now, you are here with Marietjie Bothma, Untomza Mazulu, Zintli Ntomza KZN, Nasa South Africa, coming to you live from South Africa with the headlines and international headlines and headlines from Africa and South Africa. In our first headlines today, US-China relations. Blinken accuses China of acting more aggressively. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has accused China of acting more aggressively abroad and more repressively at home. He said in an interview with CBS News, the U.S. did not want to hold China down, but would not allow it to undermine the rules-based international order. He noted that a military confrontation was profoundly against the interests of both countries. Tensions have soared in recent times over trade, espionage, and the pandemic. Mr. Blinken told CBS 60 Minutes that Mr. Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping had talked about a wide range of topics in their first phone conversation, which lasted 2 hours in February. President Biden had made clear that in a number of areas we have real concerns about the actions that China has taken, and that includes in the economic area, and that includes the theft of intellectual property, he said. He stopped short of calling China an enemy, even though the US has accused Beijing of stealing hundreds of billions of dollars in the trade sector and intellectual property. US has accused Beijing of stealing hundreds of billions of dollars in trade secrets and intellectual property. We don't have the luxury of not dealing with China, he said. There are real complexities to the relationship, whether it's the adversarial piece, whether it's in the competitive piece, whether it's the cooperative piece. But he said although China was acting like someone who's trying to compete unfairly and increasingly in adversarial ways, we're much more effective and stronger when we're bringing like-minded and similarity aggrieved countries together, he said in Beijing. This can't stand, and it won't stand at all. Mr. Blinken is visiting London for the first time face-to-face meeting for foreign ministers for the G7 industrialized countries in more than 2 years. President Biden, in the first address to Congress last week, made the point that he was not seeking conflict with China and said he had held President Tsai in his call that we welcome the competition to be a dominantly global power. In our next story, we go to Niger. Soldiers killed in an ambush by militants. At least 16 soldiers were killed in Niger over the weekend following a militant attack in the western Tatao region. The attack was carried out where more than 200 civilians had been killed in an unclaimed attack in March. The soldiers were ambushed by armed individuals near Agando area in the region. 6 more soldiers were injured in the attack and 1 is still missing. The wounded soldiers were taken to the Tahau Regional Hospital and the dead were buried in the presence of regional authorities and defense and security officials, two Niger website reported. The militants also took away 3 vehicles and completely destroyed another Tilia and Tassara areas in the Tahau region have been under a state of emergency for several months due to multiple terrorist attacks by terrorist groups in the area near the border of Mali. Now back to South Africa, where I am currently sharing the news with you. South Africa Royal Succession Royal head to court. The legal action comes days after the death of our Queen Shiyiwe Mntomfuthi Dlamini. The legal action comes days after the death of the Queen. A dispute over the succession of the late South African Zulu King Goodwill Zwelithini is now headed to court, local media reported. The first wife, Queen Sibongile Dlamini, is challenging the execution of the late monarch's will naming the next king, amid claims that his last will may have been forged. The news of legal action comes days after the death of Queen Nomfuti Dlamini Zulu. She had been appointed as regent on the 24th of March after King Zwelithini died in hospital from diabetes-related complications at the age of 72. But in the legal challenge that opposed Queen Nomfuti's appointment as regent, Queen Sibongile wanted the court to recognize her civil marriage to the late king as his only legally binding union. She also demanded 50% control of his estate. On Sunday, the Zulu Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi described the legal action as shameful while speaking to South African public broadcaster. Most of the members of the royal family are actually shocked by what she has done because she was still in mourning. They, as the widows of the king in particular, are for them to rush to court in that manner that have done has actually disgraced the royal house and the royal family. Wildlife trade criminals have moved to West Africa. These pangolin scales seized in Vietnam in 2019 were stashed in the cashew nut shipment from Nigeria. These pangolin scales seized in Vietnam in 2019 were stashed in the cashew nuts. Countries in West Africa have been urged to conduct investigations into the money laundering activities of wildlife traffickers. A new report by Royal United Services Institute, a London-based think tank, has warned that criminals in the wildlife trade have relocated to West Africa from other parts of the continent. This is in order to take advantage of weak law enforcement and lack of investigations, the report said. In the last few years, West Africa has become a major transit point for illegal trade in wildlife, including elephant tusks poached where else in Africa, as well as pangolins. In 2019, 51 tons of pangolin scales were exported from Nigeria alone. The country has been identified as the top transit point for illegal wildlife trade in the region. In our last story for today, DRC ex-minister jailed for money laundering. Willie Bakonga was arrested earlier this month as he tried to flee neighboring Congo Brazzaville with $30,000. Willie Bakonga was arrested earlier this month as he tried to flee. A former government minister in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for money laundering and the illegal transfer of funds abroad. Congolese prosecutors had been investigating Willie Bakonga over the embezzlement of funds embarked for free primary education. Earlier this month, he was extradited from neighboring Congo Brazzaville, where he had been arrested on board a plane heading to the French capital Paris, carrying $22,000. In February, the World Bank suspended a first tranche of $100 million, which was to be used to fund free education in the DRC because of concerns about corruption. 2 public education officials in DRC were suspended to 20 years in prison for embezzlement last month. And that is all we have for you in the world of news. And well, right here from South Africa, coming to you, it's Marietjie Bothma Zulu. Welcome again. And if it's the first time that you are with us, do join us every single day as we'll be bringing you more headlines from all around the world. Stay blessed.